Yay, my loves. I'm so excited to introduce you to Robyn. She is a magnificent woman, and we're going to discuss all about how to navigate some of the inner workings in the mind to create ease in the body. Because I strongly believe, and I've seen it so many times with so many clients, that the trauma and the unprocessed emotions that we experience in our mind lead to dis-ease in the body. And so this is
Yes.
such a vibrant, important part of healing, the healing journey. This component is missed so much in the traditional medical world. This component of
Mhm.
like really it's not just stress, like stressors from work, but like really what's the inner workings of our mind and the stories that are looping, or the false stories altogether that we're creating, that create stress in the
Yes.
body. So thank you for being here, Robyn. I'm really excited.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I am Robyn Trimborn. I'm an LPC in Texas, EMDR certified. So that is the type of therapy that I was going to share with you today, just to kind of give you an inside look at how our nervous systems can really be affected by our negative thought patterns and experiences and memories that we've had in the past that are traumatic or difficult. So and then how
Yeah.
to like shift people towards a more positive cognition and give that ease to the body like you were describing. So yeah.
Yeah. I've done the MDR once before, and it was fascinating. It really had, like, I
Oh, cool.
left feeling really calm and clear, and like it like literally erased things. Right? That's where you kind of follow the
Yeah.
finger. Fascinating work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's called it was started by Francine Shapiro. And she was a researcher. So when she went about creating this modality, she actually was on a walk. And she started to notice, like, when she was upset and processing things that had happened in her life experiences, she would be walking and it would start to help regulate her nervous system. And this bilateral stimulation of, right left was like soothing and keeping her in this like window of tolerance, so to speak. And so she
Mm.
began researching this. And then interestingly, they don't understand the mechanism for change and why EMDR works, but it is a therapy that is the most effective and most researched of all modalities in psychotherapy. So if you took like every modality you've ever heard of, CBT, DBT, all the things, and combine them, EMDR still has more research around it. And so it's very, very effective. And we know it works. We don't understand the brain well enough to understand why, but we know that something about this bilateral stimulation across the midline of the brain, either through eye movements or tapping, or sometimes you'll see people use headphones with like a beep sound going back and forth. We know that that helps keep our clients in their window of tolerance so that they can process through difficult memories and experiences and get to a place where it feels more neutral in the body. So
Is
yeah.
that okay? So that's the underworkings of it. It's creating
Yeah.
neutrality around a traumatic experience.
Experience. Right. And it was started for the treatment of trauma, but then what she found is that it's actually really effective for things like anxiety, phobias, addiction, pain, and there's even protocols to like help people with self-worth. And that was the one that I thought would be helpful
Mm.
for your listeners to learn about is
Yes.
say there's somebody who has like a negative belief, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy of love. And they might know cognitively that that's not true, but some part of them feels that that's true in their body. And then what I like to do is a float back. So I'll say, how does this show up in your current life? And they might say, well, every time my partner goes out, I feel scared I'm going to get a fear of abandonment, or I'm going to like, he's going to
Right.
meet someone else and he's going to, love someone else. And I get really triggered and anxious. And then I text him nonstop. And so that's like the current way that this is showing up, this belief in their life. And then I might say, okay, where do you feel that in your body? What emotions are tied to this experience? And they'd say,
Mm.
like, anxious feelings. I feel it in my heart. racing. Okay, so notice that and then float back to the earliest time you remember experiencing something like this. How old were you and what was happening? And typically they'll just immediately think of like a memory like, oh, for this fear of abandonment example, maybe it's like I was at a fair and I got separated from my parents for like 2 hours. And that was the first time I remember experiencing these same emotions of
Mm.
fear and anxiety in my body. And then we would float forward from there, building like a timeline of experiences that reinforce that belief I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. And then as we process through them in EMDR, we allow the brain to do all the work. And we're focusing on each memory on that timeline. And it's kind of like bowling, like when you hit one pin, one memory, it can kind of neutralize the other memories around it. So sometimes we don't need to go through each and every memory, but when we're going through that, we're trying to like help the brain pull up a memory and then take a look at it with new fresh eyes in this, window of tolerance. And with that bilateral stimulation, then the brain makes new meaning. And I, as the therapist, am looking for shifts towards the positive. So they might start off saying like, oh, let's say it's the memory of getting, lost at the fair. They might say, I'll remember just like a lot of like big people around me. I didn't, they might just start noticing all the scary parts. And then as they, go through the memory, they're like, but then this really nice lady kind of like helped me find a police officer. And then my mom and dad came. I remember how good it felt when they hugged me and they were back. And so they're able to like, and then my parents, like, they were scared. They might think about their own parents' experience of that moment that they had never thought of before. Because
Right.
usually our memories that are like stored at the age that we experience them. So we don't, when we pull them out, we look at them again with fresh eyes. We're able to reconsolidate them and put them back in a way that like feels more integrated, if that makes sense, and neutral. And so then we're shifting them towards a positive cognition.
Yeah, no, I love
Yeah,
it. And you made an important point. You take the other person's
yeah,
perspective into mind, because at a young age,
yeah,
you just like you formulate the story that they don't care, or that you're like, right, they're not even
yeah,
looking for you. You're just abandoned,
yes,
right? Versus
right,
like, okay,
right,
now you see it as an adult, and you're like, oh no, they didn't intend that. Like that was scary as hell for
right.
them, right? And so like
Yeah, yeah.
bringing that alternative perspective in, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I was loved.
Yes, exactly. And then that feels more neutral. Then they're able to like set that aside and have feel more like I am worthy. I am worthwhile. I am lovable. And, maybe there's other memories that are more distressing on their timeline,
Mm.
like an affair or something they experienced in a marriage. And then that might take a little bit more time to process. But yeah, the goal is to move them more towards this positive belief that they know is true, but doesn't feel true. So like, I'm worthy, I'm lovable.
I love the link. I've never made so the deep-rooted fear of abandonment, that you
Mhm.
just made that a link to not feeling good enough. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never made that correlation, that you fear being abandoned because you're not, you create a story that you're not good enough, so it's very likely you will get abandoned, kind of thing is, and then you like
yeah.
run that loop.
I mean, that's one example. There's lots of not negative cognitions that someone might associate with that. But yeah, that was just one example, but it is true. Like there are people that will have certain experiences repeated in their lives, and then the brain looks for patterns, right? And so our nervous system, if we have something traumatic happen and then we have another thing happen that sort of reinforces that belief, I'm
Mhm.
not good enough, say like, oh, you got teased or bullied then after that, and you learned that like maybe in that next memory, it's like the negative cognition might be like, I'm stupid or I'm dumb or, whatever it is,
Right,
but
right,
it's
right.
like,
I am so curious to go down this rabbit hole, because you can go in 10 directions, I'm sure, probably 100.
yeah,
But this concept of not enough, like
yes.
it's an infinite line, right? Like enough. There is
Mhm.
no actual definition, and yet we're all kind of governed by this sense of not enough. But like there is no such thing as enough.
Yes.
So like how
Right.
it's a fascinating concept if you think about it. Like it's debilitating us. This immeasurable measurement.
Right. And if you talk to people, like when they first come in and they look at the list of like these, like, I'm not enough, or these negative cognitions, I have a list. And I'm like, do any of these resonate with you? And they're like, well, these aren't true. I know they're not true, but they feel true because of these certain experiences. And so that reinforce that story you're telling yourself. I like how you're saying that, because that is a story we tell ourselves is 99%. Usually it's not true,
Right.
which is sad. And so helping people to like understand what's real and what's the story they're telling themselves can help build their self-worth back and help them have like less triggered reactions in relationships and things like that. So if we did that timeline and got all the way to the part where she was like really feeling abandoned by her partner going out, would be like, then we would get to the place where she could actually show up in her relationship as a healthier version of herself, and feel less insecure or threatened by somebody having autonomy, less anxious attachment, things like that.
It's huge. So, okay, I think the root of most people's challenge, this not enoughness of some, right? Not enough to feel loved, not enough to, not good enough, or not smart enough. Like this not enough.
Yeah.
Really is like the core.
Mhm.
And
Right.
if we dive into that, and again, it's this infinite enough. There is no, like, as soon as you get to what you would say is enough, you move the benchmark. Like, no, now I want to have
Yes.
this to feel enough. It's a
Yeah.
continuously moving goal post. Obviously EMDR helps navigate like past traumas and creates a new opportunity to kind of stay in a neutral place and reprogram, reframe the past experiences, right? But
Yeah.
how do we support the person in actually feeling enough?
Right. Yeah. So as we kind of consolidate all of these memories, at the end we always ask, what is the positive cognition that you want to move towards? And it's something is true but doesn't feel true, so it's like, I'm enough or I'm good enough. And so at the end of each memory, we're saying, how true does that feel now? And usually we have to get it to a 7. 1 out of 7 is the scale. And then if we get that score to a 7, then we know that we've moved the needle towards that positive cognition, becoming in alignment without that cognitive dissonance of that old memory kind of weighing them down. Now they feel more solidly like in alignment with, I am good enough, I am worthy. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
as we're processing each memory, it gets less distressing in the body. We're doing like a body scan. We're doing kind of where the emotions live, like what emotions are experiencing. And then we scale it on a distress level. And then we scale the positive cognition to see how true it feels. At the beginning, the positive cognition probably doesn't feel true at all. And by the end, it feels true. And so that's how you know to go on to the next memory. And that's like the beauty, I think, of EMDR is you're really getting results and you're seeing them and feeling them in real time. So,
yeah, what I'm hearing is it's like you're taking all this evidence that we've built up of how we're not enough, and like discrediting in a way the evidence.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's kind of like bringing the brain up to speed with like what's reality and what isn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow, it's so fascinating. We would build up evidence that would just be destructive to our psyche versus evidence that's
right,
positive and reinforcing. But then there's like the shadow side of that, of like narcissism, where like, I am fabulous, nothing is wrong with me.
Yeah.
Like, right?
Yeah, that's like a whole other animal, right? Like, and narcissism, I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole on that, is, its own set of problems where there is deep insecurity there. And maybe like parenting was very inconsistent and created the perfect storm for this like personality disorder. To usually, though, I will say narcissists do not show up to my office to get therapy because they don't, it's like a zero insight. Unless they're dragged in by their partner, they are usually like not showing up to therapy because it's a zero insight disorder, unfortunately. So that one I don't get. I do see borderline.
Wait, what does that mean? Zero insight. That's fascinating.
So like a zero insight disorder would be something that like the person might be diagnosed with it, but they don't agree. They're like, no, that doesn't fit. I'm not a narcissist. They don't see themselves as narcissists, right? They don't think there's a problem because they think they're like perfect, but
I
So that's a
understood
whole other
narcissism.
animal. But
Yeah, I understood narcissism to actually start as a really healthy coping mechanism to, as a child, if you're not getting your needs met, you
protect.
actually start learning to take care
Yes.
of your own needs. And then you only take care of your own needs. That's when it becomes
Yes,
narcissistic.
that's exactly true. Like we can have compassion for all of these disorders because they start with I love how you're talking through this because it's actually brings up another modality that I love to use, which is internal family systems,
Yeah,
which is
huge.
we create, yeah, so we have these experiences in childhood that might be with our primary attachment figures that could create the perfect storm for a personality disorder, but it's a protective part that develops after a wound to keep that kid safe. And for a time it works, or they wouldn't keep doing it, right? And so they keep, building up these walls or presenting themselves in a certain way in order to be like acceptable to their parent or
Mm.
caregiver, and then that continues and just spirals and can become like really toxic, as we always hear about people saying like, oh, my ex is a narcissist. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they might just have traits, but it starts out as just a protective part. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love for you to continue. IFS, we definitely need to touch on the parts work. That's huge. And
Yeah.
so
So
it's so
powerful.
funny.
Mhm.
So I have one of my best friends is a psychologist. And there was
Uh,
one point where I was like mad at my mom and I was ready to just like burn the house down, like Kali energy all over it. And she goes, I don't want to talk to that part of you. I want to talk to the loving, kind, peaceful Nikki that wants to create a peaceful relationship. And I was like, that is genius. And I can
yes.
literally see
Yeah.
that like Cali part of me, like, fine. Like scurries away and then
Yes.
loving part comes back in and like, all right, I want to be loving. We're
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I
nutty.
love that. That's so cool. I love that you have a best friend that's a psychologist. I have a best friend that's also a psychologist, and
I
she's the one
love
that kind of
that.
got me interested and in the field. So, but that's really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to talk more about parts work, and how I kind of combine that with EMDR. So let's say, and I've done tons of like really high level trauma stuff, not just self-worth, although I think that's, everyone can relate to wanting to be kinder to themselves. But with a person that's experienced something incredibly traumatic in childhood, I'll make up an example. So let's say somebody was really upset as a child, and their parent, like, I'll just make this up. So like, let's say it's somebody, you're crying in your room, you're a little kid, and you hear your mom come to the door, but then she doesn't like come in and comfort you, or she doesn't, instead she yells at you or tells you to like get over it. That would be like a traumatic event that lived in your brain and your body that you would remember feeling really like unworthy, or let's try
Mm,
to think of another one, like I'm too much or something like that. And
mm,
so what I might do to blend this parts work and EMDR is I might do a cognitive interweave where I say, okay, this time when you think about the memory, and that have your adult self show up, and what does this little child this little version of you need, and ask her to just witness her pain with her and see what she
mm.
needed in that moment. And then I would have the client kind of do the tapping, noticing this like corrective experience, really, of having what they really needed in that moment. If that makes sense.
Wow.
So it's a little bit of IFS like parts work where you're addressing the
Yeah.
little kid part, the wounded part.
Yeah.
So
I had
yeah.
that. I had I mean, my mother did the best she could. She studied Freud. She really like did her best to give me the upbringing that she didn't have. And she
Yeah.
didn't always have the tools and she didn't know how to navigate my emotions. And so often when I was crying, her response was stop crying or I'll give you a reason to cry. And she never hit
Right.
me.
Yeah.
She never would, but like it would make
Right.
it would, like stop me in my tracks and I like emotions weren't like help supported in being
Okay.
processed. Yeah, they weren't safe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, that's one of the cognitions on there is it's not safe to show my emotions as a common one that people feel because of that kind of way we were raised, or it wasn't acceptable and people couldn't handle big emotions. And so, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry that happened, but I'm sure she didn't mean to shut you down, but it does. Those little parenting mistakes do come up.
Yeah. No, she's very well. And I mean, to this day, I mean, she has great intentions, but somehow the delivery is a mismatch. We don't speak each
Yeah.
other's love language. Hers is acts of service.
Right.
So she can't do enough for me. Like, as soon as I ask her for anything, she's on it, like amazing. But my love language is
Yeah.
words of affirmation, and she doesn't know how to give
Yeah.
those. Like,
Right.
she's used to the, you kind of, you point out where someone's failing so that they do better.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm not inspired
Right.
that way. I'm inspired by like, hey,
Right.
you're
Right.
doing a really good job. And like, I'm lit up
Yeah.
by that. You not if all I hear all day at the shop is like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this
Yeah.
wrong, you're doing this wrong, and I feel like beaten down by the end of the day.
Right. Right. That doesn't inspire you to like do better. It feels like too critical and shuts you down, it sounds like.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Because and she doesn't understand when I tell her that that's my love language, words of affirmation. She's like, words are cheap,
Uh,
actions
words are
count.
cheap.
I'm like, no, they're
Yeah.
not cheap to me.
I think, yeah, they both matter, right? And when I work with couples, we talk a lot about love languages, right? And I like to tell people like you need to become experts on each other so that you can speak the other person's language, even if it's not the way you feel loved. Learning how to love someone in the way that they feel loved is your goal. So if somebody's like physical
Mm.
touch, I'll see couples where physical touch is a love language, and the partner feels like, well, I didn't grow up in a home that was affectionate. I didn't see it modeled. It feels a little, maybe you're on the spectrum, feels a little like uncomfortable. But you still have to kind of, if that's how your partner receives love, how can you learn how to get more comfortable with it and be able to still show up,
Okay, I
speaking their
mean,
language. Just
I love using this
yeah.
podcast as like using myself as a guinea pig on this podcast.
Yeah.
So one example is where she'll ask me to do something, but if I don't do it right away, she'll badger. She'll ask again
Okay.
and again
Mhm.
and again with increasing force each time. And I'm someone that's governed by my gut. Like, so if I don't get a full
Yeah.
yes, it's a no to me. And right. And I will wait until the right time. And she's not a waiter. She likes things done
Right.
immediately, like yesterday. Like, why isn't it done
Mhm.
yet?
Mhm.
And then what happens with this escalating force is I start looping in a story that she's bullying me and I will not be bullied.
Mm.
Right. And
Yeah.
because I have a that was my childhood experience where I was like kind of manipulated into what she desired for me to do. And so I have this
Yeah.
very strong boundary now. You will not bully me. Like, right.
Yeah.
And so I will stand up with like equal or greater force, even to things that like I
Mhm.
want to do. But now she's being like forceful and aggressive about doing it. So now I won't, and I get in this like really
Yeah.
idiotic, like stupid mind frame. I get it. And
Right.
it's like me standing my ground for like
Mhm.
respect and I never get what I don't get from her, which I desire is, hey, why haven't you done this yet? What is coming up for you? Why is there resistance? Let's navigate this together. That isn't in
Right.
her emotional intelligence wheelhouse yet.
Right.
It's just she's got tunnel vision to like, this is what needs to happen, so just do it. Yeah, how do I navigate this?
Yeah. So I think for your own work, what you would want to do is understand like how old does that part feel
Mm.
that digs her heels in and says, I'm not going to be bullied. Like, and then what does she need in order to like let go of that reaction of like digging your heels in, and instead like it might, then there's like communication tools, but to address the deeper wound, right, would be the first step, like really talking to that little girl part that felt like bullied, or and then felt like she needed to dig her heels in order and not
Mm.
do the opposite, like oppositional defiance almost. But what I would suggest now as an adult is like, yeah, working with that part when that protector part comes up and is like, no, mom, I'm not going to do that. Like, stop getting on my case. Then instead of like letting that part speak, try to establish that self to part relationship where when you're in self energy, you can find compassion for that little kid part and be like, oh, this is
Mm.
that little kid part showing up and wanting to like stand up to my mom in a loud way, self-soothe that part, and then try to get back into like curiosity, be like, Mom, okay, I sense some urgency. Like, is this something that can wait? Or like being able to respond with more curiosity and calm and all the ways that you show up in self energy. Does that make sense? So it's like,
Yeah,
it's a twofold step.
it's so funny because
Go
it's
ahead.
exactly
Sorry.
what I want her to do. I have to model.
Yeah.
I want her to
Yeah.
ask me and inquire, why is this so important to you? Or why is this not happening? Right. And what you're saying is like model that for her in a way. Like, why is this so important to
Mhm.
you? Like, yeah, it's so easy because we're both
Yeah.
wanting the same thing from each other: more love, more
Yeah.
respect. Right. And,
Right. Right.
but we're like literally like passing ships.
Right, right. And so it comes down to like addressing the communication and how your nervous system. So first calming yourself down, getting yourself like being like, oh, that's that part showing up again, trying to protect me from my mom bullying me. Take a breath, take a beat, and then, come back to it and be like, Mom, I'm noticing you keep asking me this in kind of an aggressive way. Like, what's going on for you? And she might be like, well, I'm getting really frustrated with you because you're not listening.
Right.
And she might say, I need you to like respond and say something like, I hear you, I'll get to it in 5 minutes. Or, she might be anxious that you're not going to actually hear her. And that's usually why communication fails, is people don't feel heard or understood, or respected, like you said.
Yeah.
So
I want to start. There's an important point that I think will support people listening, is that sometimes these stories feel so true. Like the story that she
yes.
bullies me is true in my head.
Yeah.
Like that is her go-to mechanism. It's force and aggression when she wants her way.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to like kind of like, oh, that's cute, Nikki. Like, let kind of deny that part, but I can't because it's real.
Yeah. So that part, and I mean, there is truth. Like people do bully, and so it may be happening, and so you need to like have a good boundary, right? If it's happening a lot and you don't like the way it makes you feel, then you should stand up for yourself. But maybe you're doing it in a way that's still that young part, acting out like I'm
Mm,
not going to do it at all. Then
right.
instead maybe
Which I recognize
it's
is so
you know
youthful. I'm like, that's such a kid.
right.
It's a kid.
Yeah.
I
That's
see
why it's
it.
always good to say, like, how old does that part feel? And usually that part just needs to be updated that, hey, I'm an adult. I can set a good boundary and be like, nobody can talk to me like that. Like, if you want me to get something done, you have to say it in a way that's kind, So if it
Yeah.
does feel bullying, you could say, when this happens, like you state the facts. You came in here and demanded that I do X, Y, or Z in a harsh tone or a loud voice. When that happened, the story I'm telling myself is that you're bullying me. The story I'm telling myself is that I don't want to do it because you're demanding it. And then what I, feel is angry and frustrated and defiant. And what I want going forward is like for us to be able to like communicate in a healthier way where like we hear each other, we don't feel like, we're attacking each other and things like that. And so, Mom, if you could speak to me in a kinder way or make requests in a gentler way, like that would help a lot. And so that is
Mm,
going to help lower her defenses. And
yeah.
that's an RLT, like a relational life therapy tool that's just kind of like, what are the facts? What's the story you're telling yourself? How does it make you feel? And what do you want moving forward? And then the listener, if they are trained in like how to be a good listener, will reflect back with as much accuracy. So then she would reflect back to you like, these are the things I heard you say. Did I get everything?
Yeah.
And you might say, well, you missed this part or that part. And then, hopefully you can collaborate then and nobody's feeling defensive or flooded. And that's the most important part. Because it sounds like you and your mom are both flooded
Yeah.
in the moment that like she's had to ask 3 times and you've then decided you're going to dig your heels in. And so that wouldn't be the moment to try to have a healthy conversation. Like you kind of have to regulate your nervous system and get that dis-ease, like you said, out of your body before you come together. Because your prefrontal cortex part of your brain won't be online in that
Right.
moment. You're going to be
Right.
operating out of like the amygdala where you're like, don't care about relationship. Does that make sense?
Huge. Okay, you said so
Mhm.
many valuable things there. I want to create this framework as like a downloadable option for people in the show notes, right? Because it's
Yeah.
conscious communication, right? But you
Yeah.
start with the facts, and then owning
Mhm.
your story, I think, is the key, most emotionally intelligent, wise part of this whole process. Is like, I'm telling myself the story that, or what I'm making up a
Yes.
story that, right? So that it becomes
Yes.
a like,
Mhm.
help me navigate this story,
They
because I
might.
understand
Yeah.
that it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be true, but this is what's coming up for
Right.
me, and this is right, and then these are the feelings I feel when I think this story, and it almost like
Yeah.
creates its own entity versus like an attack. You
Yes.
do
Yeah.
this, and this is what you make me feel this way. It's
Exactly. It
ownership.
invites care. Yeah, it invites care. It makes your
Mm,
partner or your mom feel like, oh, I don't want you to tell yourself that story. Let's look at this thing together and figure it out. And
yeah,
so it lowers the defensive. The person doesn't feel attacked. They feel care. Like usually they'll feel like, oh no, I don't want you to feel bullied, you know? So
right,
we say it invites care. Yeah.
yeah, love that. I've noticed that,
Mhm.
yeah. So lately, my mom and I have a very codependent relationship. That
Mhm.
she wants to be in a codependent relationship, subconsciously. It's a fascinating dynamic, because when I agree with you, that person needs to self-regulate. What happened in the past is I would come, so I'd be the villain, right? Because I'm not doing what she wants. She'd go into victim
Mhm.
mode, right? And then I'd
Yeah.
come in as the savior to regulate her nervous system and get us back to baseline. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. That's your pattern.
that's the pattern. That's the loop we get stuck in every time. And I, for the first time ever in my whole 47 years of life, allowed her, this last little fight we had, to self regulate. So I didn't come to the saving. And it took her
Yeah.
3 days of silence. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
we're working together every day.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 days of silence. I had to actually get physically sick for her to then come out of it and get back into like wanting to nurture me and willing to talk.
Okay.
But I had to
Okay.
stay in my resolve of like, I'm not responsible
Mm,
for her emotions, which I have been my whole life, right? I felt very
yeah. Yeah.
responsible taking care of her needs, making sure her love quotient is filled.
Mhm.
And I had
Yeah.
to like stop that pattern of like, nope, she gets to self-regulate. When she's ready, she'll come back
Yeah.
and we'll sit down and have a conversation. It was hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
That is really hard and like good for you. I think if you were in my office and you and your mom were there, what I would suggest is don't go longer than 24 hours.
but
And
she's
for
still
her to
frazzled.
say,
But
yeah,
she's still frazzled though.
even,
She's still in her
yeah,
reptilian.
she's still in, yeah. So, yeah, there would be ways to help coach her through like how to self soothe. And so, what you do with because it sounds like maybe you're more anxiously attached, if it's hard
Yeah,
for you to sit in the silence and give her the space to
for
like
sure.
re-regulate.
Yep.
And I think if she would say to you something simply like, hey, let's pause talking about this. I'm really upset. I need to go think about this. If I'm quiet, that's why I'm not punishing you. Because sometimes silence can feel very punishing and unsettling for the recipient, you know?
I would love that
Yeah.
level of emotional intelligence, but there's an actual
Yeah.
desire to punish. Like her
Oh,
intention of the
okay.
silence is to
Is to
punish.
punish.
Yes. That
Okay.
is your
Yeah. In
punishment.
that case, like, right. In that case, then you have to have that protective bubble around yourself saying, this is her choice to do, and I don't have to let that energy like impact me. It's easier said than done, but you can get better at it and taking care of yourself in those moments when there's silence or stonewalling, you know.
Yeah. I did it. I
Good.
made it.
Well,
I did it for the first time.
pat
Yeah.
yourself on the back.
I
That's
did.
amazing.
I know. But yeah, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating because we both want the same thing. We want love. We want respect.
Right.
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 We
Right.
want to nurture each other. And yet
Mm-hmm.
it's like we don't. I wonder if the love language thing really is the challenge. Is like, if you don't speak the
Yeah.
same love language.
Language. Right. It could
Yeah,
be. And learning how to regulate her own emotions without saying things like if she's interested in learning that, like therapy is great, you know, for like teaching people how to self-regulate how to know when like, our lower like brain is running the show versus our prefrontal cortex, and being able
Right.
to identify those. That will really help if she was, if she was interested in that. But I think, yeah, it takes a lot of like work, hard work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not everybody's like, I know my mom, like she loves it. I'm a therapist, but she's not in therapy as much as, I would love
Yeah.
everyone to be in therapy,
Yeah. I think
so
we all need it.
it takes
We're
effort.
kind of
Yeah.
we're wired to take things personally, to create stories, to right, to have this sense of not
Yeah.
good enough. Like I think every human
Mhm.
on the planet, like navigating being human is challenging.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a hard journey, That's
So sweet.
awesome.
Okay. How can people find you? What is your favorite clients to work with? Who do you love to support? And yeah, let's share a bit more about your
Awesome.
personal work and what how they can, you people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah. So I have a practice in Westlake, Austin, Texas, and also see people online. We have 4 other clinicians. They're also available. Some of them take insurance. I do not. My primary treatment focus is either individuals who've experienced trauma or issues with like self-worth, anxiety, phobias, things like that, and relational trauma. And then my other focus is couples. And I do that because they're 2 different animals, and it makes my work more interesting to do both. And so I work a lot with betrayal trauma and just, building trust and connection and safety in your relationship, things like that.
Mm.
And so people can find me on my website, WPOATX.com, and they can just reach out, fill out a form online, and we'll get back to them. We usually get back to people within 24 hours, unlike some therapy practices. So we're good at reaching back out. So
What does WPO
yeah, and
stand for?
Westlake Psychotherapy of Austin. So
Got it.
WPO and then ATX. Yeah, Westlake Psychotherapy of Austin is the name of the
Love it.
practice. I guess I should have said
Perfect.
that,
All
but
good.
yeah.
Amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Any final words you want to share of wisdom that can bless my audience?
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it's the main thing is like I love what you're doing because I think it really people need to start to notice how their thoughts impact their emotions and then their health and their body because it's all
Mm.
connected, and so just continuing that work, we're all going to have a journey to work through, like learning how to regulate our nervous system and heal old wounds as they come up. And so just like being kind to yourself when those parts come up that are less than desirable, and just knowing like that giving yourself compassion is okay. I think that we don't do that enough. And so that would be be more self-compassionate, I guess, is what I'd like
Yeah.
people to do.
I love
Yeah.
that. It's yeah, I love
Mhm.
working with mantras. So like just tuning in and being like,
Yeah.
oh, I love you. I love you. Even like mirror work, right? Looking in the mirror
Yeah.
and saying I love you 10 times. Surprisingly difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
totally is. We're so hard on ourselves. Like
Yeah.
we really are. And so saying some kind words to yourself can make a difference. And it actually is like neuroscience suggests that it actually does change your chemistry. So like even just doing this, like you're going to release dopamine. So like take care of
Mm.
yourselves, especially
Ah.
like in our current climate.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So
So
like
for
little,
those just listening, like caressing your arms, like it's almost
yeah.
like a self hug, but then like caressing up and down your arms. Ah, so sweet.
Yeah, and all of
Keep
that,
it.
like our nervous systems, we can biohack a little bit and we can like calm ourselves down. And we have more tools that are available to us than we use, I think.
Yeah. Ah, I love this. Thank you so much, Robyn. I feel like we need a part 2. There's so
Yeah.
much more to explore, but I appreciate
Yes.
you. Really, I appreciate you so much. And thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. Yay.
Yeah.
So,
Yay. Thank you so much, Nikki. I appreciate you too. Take care.
thank you. Don't go just yet. All right. Bye, you guys.
Okay.
Love
Okay.
you.